This council meeting is September, is this mine? Sorry. September 19th. As usual, let's start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Carlson?
Here.
Councilmember Dobby?
Here.
Councilmember McKeithen?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Present.
Mayor Whitmer?
Here. Okay, we've got a couple proclamations. One of the recipients is actually here. There are two, one for Christy Waldron, which will be presented to her separately, but one for William Gridley, which we'll do at this point in time. William? Okay, so this proclamation is for William Gridley, who has served the town with distinction on a number of committees and in a number of capacities, and continues to serve the town with regards to his work in helping us manage the rail activities around here and stave off some detrimental rail activities here. And so we'd like to recognize William for his services. So whereas William Gridley has served with distinction on the ATHERTON Planning Commission since June 25th, 2008. And whereas William Gridley was instrumental in bringing forward revisions to the Special Events Ordinance. And whereas William Gridley served on the ATHERTON Rail Committee, the Blue Ribbon Task Force for the Town Center, and the Town Center Task Force. And whereas William Gridley brought his expertise and breadth of knowledge to a series of important actions for the town, including, but not limited to, the Housing Element Update, the Second Dwelling Unit Program, and numerous Planning Commission reviews and proposed developments. And whereas William Gridley dedicated his time, finances, and efforts to demonstrate why the high-speed rail project is not financially viable, met personally with legislatures both in Washington, D.C., as well as in Sacramento, to explain the impacts of the project, and testified at a number of congressional, legislative, and state hearings regarding the high-speed rail project. And whereas William Gridley, along with other colleagues, analyzed, researched, summarized, and published information on the high-speed rail project, demonstrating dedication and sacrifice not only for the benefit of the town of Atherton and its citizens, but all of the communities up and down the peninsula. So now, therefore, by the virtue of the authority vested in myself, as well as all the council here, and all the residents of Atherton, I'd like to commend Mr. William Gridley my express and sincere appreciation for his service to the community and for his friendship to each and every one of us. And every member of the council has signed your proclamation, and we appreciate it.
No time limit. Okay.
No time limit. Anybody wants to say something about William? No time limit.
Take off your coats. No, all I want to say is what I generally preface my remarks on high-speed rail with, which is, this is the little town that could. You're the only council who understood the impacts of the high-speed rail in 2008 when that fraud was perpetrated on the state of California. The battle's not over. The battle's engaged. We are going to win this one. Stay the course. Keep being the little town that could. Thanks very much.
Friend William.
We all want to say that.
Thanks very much, and you've done a great job. But I wanted to ask you a question. I know you're working on a novel.
Yes.
Could you just maybe give us a hint as to what it's about and when you might be able to look for it?
My wife's going home for breakfast. Yes, there is a map in the Library of Congress, and if you ever go to Washington, go to the northmost room on the Jefferson wing. It's called the Wald-C-Muller map. It was done by Martin Wald-C-Muller and Matthias Ringman in April of 1507, 12 years before Magellan left on his voyage around the world. That map shows Africa in incredible detail, but more importantly for us, that map shows South America and parts of North America on the Pacific coast. who went there before 1507 or before Balboa crossed the Isthmus of Panama in 1517. So how did those coordinates for the Pacific coast of South America become so accurate that John Hessler, who I know and is the Director of Cartography and Maps at the Library of Congress, has called they are 90 to 95% accurate? Now, the underlying thesis is, if you don't know who developed these coordinates, there are two theses. One is Amerigo Vespucci. Everybody remember Amerigo? And that has some credence because down at the bottom of the map towards where Buenos Aires is the name America. And that's why the United States government put in half the money, private donors put in the other half of the $10 million in 1996 to purchase the map from the German government, which had only been a single copy that they know remains, discovered in 1901 by a Jesuit by the name of Johann Fischer. So the thesis of the map is around uncertainty in our lives, because as China emerges, and one of the theories is that the Chinese, in a book called 1421, anybody know that book? In a book called 1421, sailed an expedition around the world doing mapping. And it has, the 1421 thesis has some speculation, it has some facts, but it's worth looking at. So if the Chinese are, China's government is an emerging world power, and the Western world is being challenged, perhaps it's important to develop the concept of uncertainty in our daily lives, in our national life, in our worldwide Gemeinschaft, okay, to look at how we deal with uncertainty. So, just to make it interesting, it starts with a plane crash in the Gobi Desert in which the director of a museum in Western China, which was part of the Silk Road, mysteriously dies. But he had been in the United States and had disappeared and gone to talk to John Hessler at the Library of Congress 4 years before. So did the CIA get him? Did the China National Security get him? Or did he really die of cause? So that's the novel. It'll take me 3 years to get a draft, and I hope it will be interesting. Yes?
William, I am very sorry that you're no longer going to be as involved in ATHERTON as you have been in the past, because you have just been a super asset. And all I would like is I would like to have many, many, many more William Grunleys serve the town.
As I've said, I think individually to each of you, I'm not going away. There is a period of quiescence at the moment with the high-speed rail issue. I will come and brief you when there are issues that you should think about or confront. But I really need the time to devote to this novel. And I think all of you as elected officials, take the heat. I don't, I stand back. But I'll give myself a plug. I apparently was, and Jerry actually has a copy, and I'll send one to you to distribute to council. I was on a Fox News segment on Monday night after a 4-hour filming on Sunday night at our house with myself and 6 other of the Peninsula opposition leaders. It was commented to me that, gee, you have a heck of a TV peerage. You actually look like Bill Clinton on TV. So, never mind, I won't go any further.
Don't sit down just yet. I just want to add my 2 cents and say thank you, William, for your contribution to the town. It's an honor to know you, and our town has been so much more blessed for you being with us, and your house is gorgeous.
Yes,
so
it is.
I know everyone else wants to say something too.
Yes, and it was me, Kathy, at the airport the other day, waving at you. Take care.
Okay. Any other council comments with regards to William?
If we're the town that could, you're our engine. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any public comments with regards to William? We invite you to step forward and add any accolades or anecdotal stories you'd like to tell us, any embarrassing things. Okay. Okay. Moving on, we'll have public comments then. And as we speak, we need to make sure that we're using our microphones to the best of our abilities here We are putting in ADA hearing apparatus, but the critical part has been back ordered and is not going to be available until tomorrow. And so, as it was brought up at the last meeting, we want to make sure that everybody who comes to the meeting can actively participate in the meeting. So I ask all the council members, as well as any public, to speak directly into the microphone, and to please make sure you're speaking from the microphone as opposed to just from your chair, etc. Okay, so thank you. So any public comments at this time?
Good evening. My name is Denise Kupperman, 74 ATHERTON Avenue, and I'm a candidate for the City Council. But I'm not here to speak about that. I'm here to speak about the Tree Committee, who every year hold a Heritage Tree Award. And we encourage all of our residents to nominate either one of their own or a neighbor's tree. Our large heritage trees are incredibly important to our community, and it's a wonderful way to celebrate them. And applications are in the town administrative offices, or you can contact any of the tree committee members. I think the roster is on the town website. And we have a new award this year, which is for developers who have shown and demonstrated very great care during construction. There continue to be issues regarding that matter, and we hope over time they can be overcome. But there are a couple of good examples, and we think that if we were to hold these up, it might encourage better compliance. So I encourage any and all of you that are here tonight to take a look at your own trees or your neighbors, and maybe recommend some for selection. And we will be making, I think, the awards sometime in the later fall. Thank you.
Denise, when's the application deadline?
The application deadline is September 30th.
Okay.
And there was an article in the Almanac today highlighting that. So see the Almanac for details or the city website. Okay, any other public comments? Seeing no further public comments, I will close public comments, and we will have the report out of closed session. The council met today beginning at 5 p.m. on two subjects. On the first subject, which was negotiation or meeting and conferring with our labor negotiator, the council took action and has asked both the labor attorney as well as our city attorney to start drafting a resolution which will be presented at a upcoming meeting, which would define clearly our management team's fringe benefits for the upcoming year. Second item was to meet and confer with regards to discussion and recruitment of a new city manager. And in this case, we've had an agreement on an approach to move forward with a candidate pending successful background investigation and further discussion. So progress is being made on that, but until we get a successful background investigation and final confirmation, we'll not be releasing the names of the people who we have at this point in time publicly. Any other comments, Bill? Okay. All right. Report out of closed sessions are on, so we will move, oh, excuse me, that was mine, so it was city manager's report, sorry.
You have my written report. I'll take any questions.
Yes, I have one. Really, it's for Ed Flynn. On response times, you said you wish met our goal of having an average response time of less than 8 minutes. It seems to me at one point that we were attempting to have an average response time of less than 5 minutes. I maybe got this wrong, but I still think 8 minutes is marginal, to be honest. So I think we need to look at what we need to do to bring that back down.
In fact, in the budget, Jim, I think you're right. In the budget discussions, the objective was 5 minutes. We could go back to
check that, but if you check into that,
Mayor, I'd be glad to look at that since I've been here the last year. It seems that the verbiage has been in many of these reports under 8 minutes, but I certainly would take a look at that discrepancy and whether or not the response time is calculated from the time we receive the call in dispatch or from the time it's actually dispatched. So we need to kind of evaluate how we're looking at that.
okay, that's a good point. Yes, Jerry?
I had a couple of comments and a question. I'll start with a question. For a roundtable presentation, when is the Disaster Preparedness Committee due to come back to council and give us an update?
I'm still talking to the Disaster Preparedness Committee, and I would expect the next couple of months they should be prepared.
Correct. We have a meeting next week, I believe, with ADAP and some of the folks, and we're discussing that. And the city attorney and I have been talking about the resolution for the disaster council that we had discussed.
Thank you. There are a number of planned or open projects that it would be good to know when we will be getting a report, when they are expected to be completed. I was wondering if part of the city manager's report, maybe it'd be a table or something like that that would list the projects and with expected dates to be presented to council, or whatever might be a good indicator when some action is going to happen. But let me just give you an example of what I'm thinking about: the bike and pedestrian master plan, the park use master plan, the fee updates, long-range financial plan. And I'll give you the rest of my list here, but just to give you an idea as to the types of things I think would be good to keep in front of us in terms of knowing that they're coming up, and maybe approximate dates will be on the council agenda. Is there anything in the South Bay Waste Management Authority area that is worth noting tonight?
Not at the moment. We have a consultant who's working on the rate analysis. She's been doing a lot of work. She's meeting with the Recology tomorrow morning, and then with me at 10 a.m. after she meets with Recology. So I'll know more about what the rates are going to look like for Atherton for 2013.
Okay, thank you.
So isn't she also working on the fees?
She's also working on the fee study, and she's doing a really good job managing that as well. That's moving along.
I have one other item, and it may not be in the city manager's report, but we've talked several times about having a summary of our legal activities every month. And so far, I haven't seen that, and I'm hoping that we can get that fairly soon.
Since the council gave that request to me 2 months ago, you've received one, and the other one will be going out tomorrow. We've received two, and the other one's going out tomorrow.
Could we try and have those before the council meeting?
Sure, there's no reason it can't.
Yeah, I mean, just so that if we look at it.
There is a reason, generally speaking, the union lawsuit, the decision we've been waiting for came down. I'll be in court tomorrow morning talking about it, and then after that, we will have more to tell you, so we've kind of delayed it a few days on purpose.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the city manager's report?
One thing I would like to add is that we did an extensive recruitment for the position of finance director, and we did offer the job to Robert Barron III. He's currently the financial services manager for the city of Millbrae. He's expected to start with the town on Tuesday, October 9th.
Good. Good move.
Yeah, I was hoping he was going to be here tonight, but he's finishing up the audit with Millbrae, so he's spending several evenings there.
Okay. Okay, so he'll be at the next meeting for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. Moving on then, we've got the consent calendar. The consent calendar is items number 8 through 15 and 14, sorry. And any council member or any member of the public can remove one of these for further discussion and public comments. So are there any items that we'd like to have removed? Jerry?
Yes, number 13, please.
Okay. Jim, anything? 13 as well. Okay. Elizabeth?
13, I had a question.
Okay. Kathy? 12, okay. And I'd like to just make a comment on 14, so we can, my item on 14, my comment on 14 is just that, you know, we're going through a lot of expense for what's gonna end up being $7 a year property tax increase for this annexation of the property. So,
One by the person who's
Yes.
asking for it,
I know, but
paid for by the applicant.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's a lot of work that we're doing for very little gain. And I think that that was echoed by a number of other council members at the last meeting, and just seeing it again reminded me, so. Let's go through.
Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
I wanted to ask the town planner, Lisa, if in going through this process of the annexation, it does clean up a parcel in a sense, does it not?
Correct, the parcel in question is currently landlocked, and the purchaser always thought they were buying property in Atherton. The residence is located in Atherton, and this is essentially their rear yard. And as indicated, we did receive a deposit account, so staff time is being billed against that for the applicant.
So I think it's well worth it, Mayor.
Good, thank you for your comment. Okay, can we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, which is, are there any consent items that the public would like to have removed? Seeing none, then can we have a motion to approve items 8, 9, 10, 11, and 14?
So move.
All in favor? Aye.
I'll second.
Oh, second.
I'll second.
Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Still the same vote. Okay, item number 12.
A couple of questions here, please. Is there no near salvage company? This is in Vallejo, and we have to pay the estimated cost of travel for the vehicle that isn't operable, which is an hour and a half.
To my understanding, this is the one that both Redwood City and the town of Atherton have used in the past.
And what does Menlo Park use?
I'm not certain what Menlo Park uses, but we work through the Redwood City Courtyard as our contract for fleet services.
I'm just wondering if at some point we shouldn't at least look into if there isn't somebody nearer than Vallejo.
We
I
can
think
do
this
that.
came up last time too, when we were salvaging some truck. We had a accident damaged police car, and we were having to put it on a tow truck at some large expense to get it all the way up to Vallejo to sell it as scrap metal. And I think that we asked at that time if we would look into it as.
It just seems like a long way to take a vehicle to get rid of it, and to pay, $85 per hour to get it there. Also, we're getting rid of a lot of trucks. A Ranger from 2001, a Ford truck, but it's the dump trucks that concern me, because I remember a while back, Duncan wanted us to buy a new dump truck, and we said no. Remember that whole discussion? We said no, we didn't want a new dump truck, get a used dump truck, and now we're getting rid of the 2 dump trucks we have, and I realize one of them is very old. One of them is from a '99. And we're getting rid of it because we say that the trucks are rarely used, as MCE has its own vehicle. Are we certain that we will never need to use our own dump truck? I realize we have contracted out our services. I realize tonight we have on the agenda an extension of that contract. But are we sure that we will never need our own dump truck? For example, when we do Day at the Park, the Day at the Park where we clean up at the park, and we might need to have a dump truck.
I'd like to also echo that. I believe that just because we have a contract with MCE and we're renewing it for 1 year, then it will be recompeted, and our drive right at this point in time is to go out to, with contract services. I think some of these we might want to keep, or at least one of them we might want to keep. It just seems short-sighted to be so quick to dispose of all of them.
Well, first of all, we're not disposing of all of the public works vehicles. There's still a vehicle that I'll be driving. Our town engineer has one. We're actually keeping an extra one because it was a 2013 vehicle and just what we get for it isn't what it's worth. So we're gonna keep that and you know, rotate it in our plan. As far as those dump trucks go, they were reaching the end of their normal lives a year ago. Now they've been sitting for a year. If we need to use one, the price to get those things back up, you know, with battery issues, and one of them's got a radiator problem, to rent a dump truck costs $150 a day. If we need one, let's go rent one. Let's get that stuff out of our fleet. It doesn't pay to keep it. Keeping those vehicles non-op is just something that'll end up costing us money, or unless we want to, you know, keep them up, pay for the upkeep. And you know, the MC crews are not driving our vehicles. They have their own, and so those things are just sitting there. And at this point, we've been in this new contract model now for a year, and I think it's time to get rid of this stuff and let's cut it loose. And if we want to keep a dump truck, it's probably time to go buy a new one, which doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense.
With getting rid of these, we won't have any dump trucks, is that correct, Steve?
That's correct. But we have access to dump trucks, you know, should we need one. Local rental yards. A number of years ago, we started to cycle out equipment that we didn't use a lot, such as air compressors, aero boards, because they're easily rentable.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
We save on insurance costs.
Insurance costs, maintenance
The only
upkeep.
thing I would say is, my wife keeps telling me this about buying a high pressure water. You know, she said, you can go and rent one for $40, $60, $80 a day. But my comment to that was, when I want to use that, I might only want to use it for an hour. In which case, I don't want to go and rent one for a whole day. And is it the same thing with dump trucks?
Well, as you know, if you don't use a vehicle, when you go to start it, there's going to be issues with it.
Well, I have an old 53 GMC pickup.
But I see you drive that every day.
No, I don't. I hardly ever drive it yet. When I go to start it, I always have my go to start it. And, you know, I'm just saying, if we only need to use a dump truck for a couple of hours at different times, it wouldn't pay us to go and rent one for $150 a day. What does it cost us from an insurance viewpoint for these dump trucks?
Teresa could probably better answer the insurance. I can only say that to use one for an hour or two a day isn't happening right now, because MCE does not drive our vehicles. They're not insured to do so. They don't drive town of Atherton vehicles, besides our tractors, which are not, you know, equipment.
Actually,
Thank you, Steve.
Mayor, I have one thing to add. When you talked about the location of First Capital, we do have to get 3 bids according to our purchasing policy. And I believe it was either Steve or Lieutenant Wade that got the 3 bids, so I can check the locations on those as well. But this was probably the cheapest.
Well, we just want to look at the total, you know, just
Right.
like when we're buying something, we look at the total life cycle cost, which is the maintenance cost as well as the procurement cost, et
Right.
cetera. We want to look at the total cost to get it there and get it sold and what we
Right.
anticipate is going to be the sale.
Finding a reputable company in this type of business is also very important. There's a company that's right on the other side of 101 that does the same thing, and a number of local cities have tried them and can't get their money out when it's over with. These companies often go out of business, so, you know, every other year they're in business, they're out of business. So to find a reputable company, which we know this company is, they paid us every cent that was owed to us after the last auction within 2 weeks. That's pretty good in this business, so it's a good company to go with.
Any other questions on this item, item number 12?
Not for me, thank you.
Are there any public comments on item number 12? Seeing none, come back to the council. Do we have a motion to approve item 12?
So
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 13, Jerry.
Thank you. I had some questions just to get clarification. Looks like a pretty good deal for the town here. 2 very nice looking sculptures. Do we have any kind of a criteria established for sculptures at the park? Is there any kind of a guideline or anything like that that exists?
We don't currently have any, but at the Park and Recreation Commission, we talked about developing that. Donation policy and guidelines for what we would accept for the park and both parks, the reading park as well.
Well, I think that's very important here, that we have some sort of framework to operate in, and the insurance piece of it you've taken care of, is that correct?
Yes.
That's all, okay. As far as the moving of the items, that's all gonna be handled, or the cost of moving those items to Atherton is gonna be picked up by not by the town, but by someone else, is that correct?
Well, it's coming out of the Rita Corbett Evans fund.
Out of the art committees?
Yes.
Okay. And that includes the installation of the item in the park?
Yes.
Does it include the annual upkeep, if there is any associated with the items?
I'm not sure that that was discussed, but I can discuss that with the committee.
Do we have any idea what's involved with an annual upkeep?
I don't, but two of the Arts Committee members are here. We might consider asking them.
Okay, let me just finish my questions here, then maybe we can get our committee person or someone to answer the
Yes.
question about the annual maintenance, what's involved and costs and that sort of thing. Then a question about the siting. Who's going to determine or have the final say as far as the siting goes of the item?
The final say City Council will have, but we'd also like the Park and Recreation Commission and possibly the Arts Committee to weigh in on it and make a recommendation to City Council.
So what you're looking for tonight is approval to accept this, but not to finalize the siting, is that correct?
Correct.
And that would also apply to the timing of when that would be moved to the park, since you could have a construction going on there later on. Is that also going to be taken into account?
Yes.
Okay. So if I get an answer on the operating, the maintenance and operating costs and what the town would be taking on as an ongoing obligation there, I appreciate it.
Okay, Jerry has asked a lot of the questions I would ask, but one of the things I see here is it says, ABAC indicate by accepting the statute, the town would have moderate exposure that relate to liability. Could you sort of give me a little more information on what does moderate exposure mean?
Moderate exposure means that it would be, for instance, a child climbing on one of those horse sculptures and falling off and breaking an arm.
Yeah.
We can reduce that exposure by putting up signs saying do not climb.
But moderate exposure from a liability viewpoint, I mean, if they sue us and does ABAC pick it up?
Yes.
They do, but of course, there is a deductible for every,
Right.
so if somebody sues us for a broken arm, it's just gonna be paid by us. But if somebody breaks their back and they're seriously injured, or if the horse or one of these sculptures falls on somebody and they're seriously injured or killed, then ABAC does pick up that defense.
So a couple of my questions had to do with the risk of installing. It looked like the horse, the tail of the horse is thin strands of bronze that could be broken off, or child break it off and use it as a sword or something. So placing it, I think, is going to be important, and it would have to be carefully thought out, and I would like the input from the Park and Rec as well as the Arts Committee about that. And you did send, which is not in the packet, a couple of citing possibilities.
Yes.
Right, but it's not in the
I
packet.
believe Ted might have brought those in color.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, but I didn't print it out. So the other question is, do we know the value of the sculptures, an estimated value of the sculptures, and would we insure at that value?
We're definitely gonna insure the sculptures. I'm not sure how much they cost. Ted might have that.
I don't have any direct information, but I would venture the two of them are over $50,000. I'd like to make a correction though. The tail of the horse is made with material sort of like rebar. It's not going to break off.
Oh,
This
okay.
is, I don't think we have to worry about kids running around with swords.
Okay, thank you.
Whether it could be whether they could be bent or not, I suppose anything can be damaged. It's a pretty sturdy piece. This artist specializes in public art, and I don't think we really need to worry about damage to the piece. Now, as for public liability, we have other pieces of art, so-called art, in the park. There's a little sculpture of Diana, I guess, which somehow that has not come out and bitten anybody, and no one's tried to climb on it. And we have something in front of the library. It was a community project. If we're going to worry about each piece and its ability to attack our friends, we really need to worry about all of them, and also consider other liability of the same kind. I mean, my grandson loves to go to the park and climb trees, and I think they're probably more of an attractive nuisance than these sculptures ever will be. So I have some questions about whether additional signage really does any good. Obviously, the town has to have public liability, and I don't see this as being any more of an issue than many of the other things that are around us. Now, as for upkeep, these pieces have been in a sculpture garden in my past friend's home for a number of years. And so far as I know, there has been no upkeep whatsoever. Now, occasionally, anything outdoors needs to be washed down. The one piece is bronze, the other is steel. I would expect to have the upkeep to be very minimal. They're both very sturdy. Now, that doesn't mean that someone can't come in with an axe or something and damage them, of course. Any public work, this is possible, but there will be vandalism. But I wouldn't expect normal wear and tear to be a significant factor.
I think it's a wonderful